Alright, so today is talking about this book. But before we talk about this book, I want to have something a little more positive to start off the video. And we'll read out of my Encyclopedia of Spirits. And we shall talk about Ibukura Idut, also known, I guess, as Earthly Beauty, Beauty of the Earth. Classification, fairy. This fits very well into the theme that's going to be coming up. The origin is Albania. Ibukura Idut, queen of Albania's fairies, rules over a host of other beautiful spirits. They are volatile, capricious, and utterly unpredictable. When encountered, they may be generous and kind or maliciously destructive, like most fairies in lore. Ibukura Idut herself is the epitome of beauty and happiness. Her name is sometimes used to describe an ideal woman. She may be petitioned for help if any of her subordinates are misbehaving. Oh, nice. Good to know. Before Ibukura Idut was an Albanian fairy, she was an Illyrian goddess of beauty and love. Her lover is Timur, supreme deity of the Illyrians, an Indo-European people, ancestors of many Albanians. Ibukura Idut lives in a fairy tale castle atop a mountain guarded by fabulous beasts and creatures. She may also possess an underworld realm. Cool. All right. And on that note, we shall talk about House of Sky and Breath by Sarah J. Maas. I'm a little late to the hype train of everyone talking about this book because it did come out, I believe, in January. I pre-ordered it, I received it, and I was excited to read it, kind of. It's really weird. So this is the sequel to the first book, which is House of Earth and Blood. And when I read House of Earth and Blood, I really loved it. I thought it was fun. I had a great time. I thought it was a little long and it could have been shortened, but I really genuinely had a good time reading it. And when I finished it, I was like, damn, that was a really good standalone. Then when I heard that it would have a sequel, I was a little like, do I really want to read the rest of this? It's not like the world in the first book was well defined, and really I didn't care much about the whole fantasy aspect of it. I cared more about the kind of murder mystery romance subplot that was happening in the first book. So I put this one off for a very long time, and I finally did get to it, but it was not great. So it is a sequel. I'm not going to get too much into details, but basically in this book, our main characters, Bryce and Hunt from the first book, they have successfully saved the world, and now they're kind of laying low. They're trying not to attract too much attention to themselves because they're walking on thin ice with the master overlords called the Asteri. But there is a rebellion going on, and you do hear about it in the first book a little bit, and in this one it plays a much bigger role, and Bryce and Hunt kind of get tangled into it along with a bunch of other shit. So that's all I'm really gonna say for the synopsis of this book without getting too much into it, not spoiling too much. And I gave this book 1.5 stars. Now, I didn't DNF this book, which a lot of you may be wondering, but you DNF books all the time when you don't enjoy them. And that's true, but I will only DNF a book that I'm not enjoying when I know that it's gonna put me in a slump. That's when I DNF, when I'm like, no, it's not worth it. This is going to mess up my feelings of reading, and I'm not gonna wanna keep reading for a little while. But then there are books like this that I hate, and that I just love to hate read. I'm sorry, I'm putting it down because it's really heavy because it's 800 pages. It's massive. And that's another problem with it, is that it lasts way too long. This could have been cut in half at least. Probably more. What the fuck was I gonna try and say here? Hold on. I gotta keep track of what I'm saying, because if I don't keep track, I'm gonna fucking lose my mind. Alright, so this book is not a full 1 star. It gets that little 0.5 because it did make me laugh sometimes. There is humor in this book that works for me at times, not always. But it does have a kind of comedic, sarcastic aspect to it, though sometimes it's not very well placed and it bothers me, but whatever. Overall, it just gets the 0.5 because I did giggle a couple times. Now I'm going to kind of talk about the beginning of the book and kind of my process of it. None of this will be spoilery. I will try and do like chapters in the YouTube video where you can like see where the spoilers start, and I will try and put something up when it gets spoilery, but we're not getting there yet. So when I started reading this book, all right, like the first, I don't know, maybe like 20 pages, I was really happy to be back with the characters. I was like, yay, we got Bryce and Hunt again, and they're gonna be a romantic power couple. I was really looking forward to that. Then I got annoyed because it literally starts off with like, they have not slept together yet. They decided that they would wait until the winter solstice to have the schmexy time. Because I guess that when you're running around a city trying to figure out who murdered your best friend and, you know, running away from powerful enemies, that's not a good time to get to know someone, right? That's not how you get into relationships with people. Last I checked, that's probably one of the best ways to get to know someone is when you're under duress, when you are fighting a common enemy, when you are both of you against the world. Like, that is the best time. Especially when you're getting along doing it. Whatever. I thought it was so stupid that it literally starts off with that trope of like, oh no, not yet. Let's get to know each other a little better before we do it. So that bothered me. I was like, okay, I'm already annoyed. 20 pages in. And then another thing pops up where it's a guy, I guess technically Bryce's cousin, who she didn't really know about, Cormac. He shows up and he's like, yeah, I'm your fiance now because Bryce's dad is a dick. And he's like, yeah, no, you have to marry a fae, not an angel, which is what Hunt is. And so, yeah, then that pops up, the forced fiance marriage thing. And I was like, okay, now I'm even more annoyed. And from then on, I already knew. I was like, this is a car crash, a slow-moving car crash on a highway, multi-vehicle car crash happening slowly. And I'm gonna just watch. I have my popcorn, and I'm just gonna watch it happen. And I was right. That's basically what happened. I'm gonna get comfy. So, as this car crash is beginning to build up, right, you have the one main plot line that comes up, which is the rebellion and them kind of getting involved in it. And from there, I don't know what the fuck was going through Sarah J. Maas's brain, but she was like, let's just add a whole bunch of other shit. Let's just, like, put in every possible little thing that I could so that there's not just one plot line, there's not just two, there's not just three. No, there's like fucking 12 of them. Already, the world in this book is really hard to keep track of and understand because you've got all kinds of fucking fairies. You've got the fae, you've got shifters, you've got angels, you've got mer people. Humans also exist on the world, and that's where the rebellion comes in, where the humans are fighting the fae overlords, the super people overlords, whatever. And it's like, it's never really fully well explained, and I guess like even they don't really know what it is, like how this world came to be, which is fine, that's fair. But then you just have all this other shit coming in, and I'm like, I don't care. Like, the main story is supposed to be about this rebellion, right? And then on top of that, as you're reading the book, there are reveals that happen. I gotta tell you, there were so many reveals that after a while I was numb to them. I was like, okay, that's a reveal I just don't even care about anymore because now I've had like 20 different reveals and I'm done. I've had my reveal quota filled. And then of course, like to make all of these kind of plot points and reveals and all that, there was a million plot devices and conveniences that were made, but most of all, what I hate the most is how much there was things that were repeated or like explained by characters through dialogue rather than being shown. It kind of just felt a lot like Sarah J. Maas thought that I was stupid and wouldn't be able to understand something. Like at some point there was a joke being made where it was like, you know, like, oh, well, that's how you become a rebellious prince or whatever. And then after that, there's a little comment of like, oh yeah, I get it, because we're also involved with the rebellion. And I'm like, yeah, you know, I could have probably put that together myself. Like, I have a brain, and I like to be able to understand subtext, but there's no subtext in like any of this. Oh my gosh. And speaking of subtext and there being none, there was no subtext in the spice. So book 1 had very little spice. It was mostly a lot of like, I guess angst you could say, or rather like a romantic interest being built up. And in this book, like the beginning of it kind of has it, but it very quickly turns into, nah, we fucking each other now. But listen, I understand enjoying smut, but there's a good way to do it and there's a bad way to do it. And in this book, I think there were about like 10 smut scenes. There were only 2 that I probably enjoyed because everything else was just, it turned gross very quickly because again, no subtext. Literally just plastering the words like cock and breast and clit and all of that, but merging all of those words into ways where I was like, this is disgusting. So yeah, basically, without really spoiling too much of what this book was to me, it was A, way too long, B, it just couldn't fucking figure out what it wanted to be. Like it had too much in there. It had too much. It couldn't figure out what story was actually driving it, I guess. Like, yes, there is one main, like, this is what we're following to get to the end, but it couldn't figure out how to stay there. I think that's what it just kept deviating off into other things, and I was like, oh my god, just pick a fucking path. Okay, and then it also just tries to be more than it actually is. Like, it tries to be a romance and an epic fantasy and like secretive mystery, rebellion, and just too many things. And yeah. So this is where we're gonna kind of get more into the spoilers. I need a drink of wine before we do that. As I said, there were a lot of plot points, and this is mostly where I'm going to be spoiling a lot of stuff, because this book I wrote them down. It had like 12 different like plot points, reveals, whatever, and it's too much. And there probably was more, or maybe I may have like split one plot point into 2 because it had like 2 important things. But this is what I think. Let's just go through them, okay? This is not in like any kind of chronological order either of when they appear in the book. It's just ones that I like remember and jotted down. So the first one that I'm going to talk about is Ethan. Ethan is Bryce's like old best friend from the first book. He's a wolf boy. He's a wolf shifter, and he was part of a pack, and he gets kicked out by Sabine, I guess she's the alpha and the prime apparent or whatever. The point is he gets kicked out and he ends up seeking refuge with Bryce, and for a long time in the book, he's living with her and kind of cock-blocking Bryce and Hunt. And I guess that was supposed to be something, whatever. The point is that I did not give a fuck about him. And also, the amount of times that they talked about fucking Sunball and about how because he was a Sunball player, he could do all these fancy things. And I'm like, I didn't fucking realize that playing a sport made you a goddamn warrior. That bothered the shit out of me. And his like story, his thing with the wolves, with the fact that he got kicked out and that he doesn't like the leader, and that there's probably some kind of lineage problem going on there where like Sabine shouldn't be the prime, and it goes fucking nowhere. It goes nowhere. And it's just like, why the fuck? Why? Why does it matter? We're clearly more interested in this rebellion thing going on in the Asteri, but no, apparently Ethan is a character who was devoted quite a bit of time in this book, and I thought that was fucking useless. Number two is Therian. Therian, the fucking merman, who, like, he was a cool, helpful guy in the first book, and in this book, he's just sad fish boy, okay? I'm getting very carried away. I need more wine. So Therian is another point of view that we get in this book, and I don't know why. So he is, like, some kind of intelligence officer for the River Queen, and she's apparently all evil and shit, and he wants out, but he's betrothed to her daughter, and I don't know, he just kind of like goes around and is doing a bunch of stuff, and he gets involved in like the rebellion stuff because his queen is looking for Sophie, and Sophie is the she was an agent in the rebellion, and I guess she was killed because she had intel on something, and the River Queen wanted to know what it was, so she told Therian to go find her, and then when they don't find her, he's looking for Emil, her younger brother, who is said to have these super Thunderbird powers or whatever, which honestly, I didn't fucking know the difference between a Thunderbird and Hunt and his thunder lightning powers. I was like, isn't he a Thunderbird? Like, I don't get it. What the fuck is the difference? Anyways, Therian, I don't know why he was a POV. I don't know why, because he made bad decision after bad decision, and all he was like sad, and he would hang out at Bryce's apartment. I'm like, okay, cool, so what? Like, what? Other than him helping out from time to time, like, I don't get why his story was, like, so focused on at points. And then, listen, when he went to the Viper Queen after telling his betrothed that he didn't want to be betrothed anymore, like, how the fuck did you think that was gonna go down, by the way? Tells her that, goes to the fucking Viper Queen, who's like queen of the underground or whatever, and he's like, hey, I'll fucking sell myself to you. It's, you know, it's either being trapped underwater or it's being trapped with you, and I'd rather be trapped with you. I'm like, yeah, no, that's not a good choice. And you had a third fucking option. He could have gone to the Ocean Queen. What the fuck is... Ugh. So yeah, that one was fucking annoying, and I don't understand why it was... thing. Okay, number 3, Hell. There was this thing with the princes of Hell, Prince of the Pit, Prince of whatever, and Reapers and shit, and like, they're over here saying like, Bryce, Hunt, you must discover the extent of your powers. And I'm like, okay, but how is this, like, nothing happened on that end either, really, other than them being attacked by the Reapers a couple times, which ended up not even being related to the underworld hell princes or whatever. And even at the end of the book, fucking nothing happened with them. So I was like, what was the point of this? I wrote here, I was like, shit made no sense and still doesn't, and it just adds complexity to the history of the world that is poorly built in the first place. Like, the whole thing with, like, how Bryce is descended of that Star Queen, and turns out that the Hell Prince was in love with her, and I was like, okay, we're just adding more complexity and not actually, like, delving into that and utilizing it for the plot. It was like, hey, boop, there's a little bit of information, bye! That's how that felt. Number 4 is obviously Bryce and Hunt. They were a plot point, of course, because they're the lovebirds. They're the romance plot point, I guess, sort of. They're one of the romance plot points. That bothered me to no end, because A, it started off with them not having sex, and then it ended up with them having so much sex that they're mated, and the amount of times that they talked about how much they loved each other, I was like, I'm kind of sick of this. Kind of sick of you talking about it. And their sex was gross. I literally wrote here, I was like, we get it. You're in love. Please stop slapping your balls on her ass. Because that part grossed me the fuck out. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I mean, their plot point obviously made sense because they are important in the story. They are the main characters. But I got really sick of the moony eyes and the, God, I love you so much. Oh my gosh, you are for me. You're only for me. I read a part of the book to Ryan where it was like them having a like moony moment and then immediately going into like, so are you gonna fuck me now? And even Ryan was just like, oh, that's really badly written. I'm like, yes, I know. Because like, I don't know, I wanted a power couple, not a fucking freaky sex duo, I guess. I don't know, it bothered me. I was like, okay. I was expecting more. Number 5, the Starborn Princess powers and all that shit. This entire fucking book was Bryce and Rune, her brother, not knowing about their powers, and yet their cousin apparently knows a lot about it. 800 goddamn pages, and they still learned nothing. They still haven't improved in any fucking way other than Bryce learning how to apparently shine a little brighter and teleport. But yeah, that's it. Like, I was like, are you serious? And then we get that one tidbit of info from the Prince of Hell who was like, yeah, it turns out these powers are from this lady. But that's it. I was like, what? Like, it would just flash little pieces, be like, hey, well, there's a little bit about the Starborn shit. Again, it was a convenient plot device. It was something that could be sometimes referenced to and justify certain things. And that bothered me to no goddamn avail. And the fact that literally Bryce is still useless up to the end. The only thing she was useful for was her loud goddamn mouth. Number 6, Cormac. Oh, when he came in as being like the fiance, the arranged fiance, I was hoping for more. I was hoping to either really hate him or to end up kind of liking him, and I felt nothing. I felt nothing for him. I didn't care for him. Nothing. I have a void where he is. And even like the fact that he loved Sophie, like there was nothing there. Like I didn't even feel like he actually did love her. Yeah. That's all I'm gonna say on him because I have nothing else to fucking say. Then there is Emile and Sophie. So Sophie, the rebel girl who had this intel, who was killed for it, she made it seem like Emile had powers, and for most of the god fucking book, for like 400 pages, they're trying to find Emile, right? It's the whole thing. They're trying to find Emile. They're like going against the River Queen. They're going against the fucking rebellion person, Speptos, whatever, Pepto-Bismol, that lady. And they find Emile. Or rather, Bryce fucking had Emile the whole goddamn time. And yet, nothing happens there either. Emile gets found. Bryce had Emile the whole time. She knew where he was. She was just leading everyone on. And Emile had no powers, and we just dropped that. What? So the whole beginning of this book was built on a lie. I really hated that. I really, really hated that. We're gonna move on. Oh, okay, yeah. Then Danica. Danica keeps coming up. She's dead, and yet she seems to be the smartest fucking character in this goddamn book. I also cannot fully believe that Danica and Bryce were best friends if Danica hid all of this stuff. Like, all of it. It just seems... I'm a little done with Danica being used as a plot device and a convenience to, like, advance a bunch of shit. And apparently she fucking knew everything. Also, the fact that she was Baxian's mate. I think I wrote something here too. No, I didn't. No. Like, Baxian is conveniently this really bad guy who met her 2 years ago and then changed forever and helped her discover things. I was like, okay, I'm just kind of done with this, like, best friend who has been dead for a few months now and apparently knew the entire fate of the universe. No. Celestine, who was the archangel who came to replace Michael or whatever, Michael, whatever, the fucking murder guy who Bryce killed in book 1. She also served no purpose. I thought she would. I figured that, she would end up being kind of a high player, someone who would possibly, like, help in replacing this power struggle that's happening, that the rebellion is fighting against, And she seems like a good person, but it turns out no, she was just like a little plot thing to be like, hey, look, in this world, women are used to have sex with men to create hears, and it's really sad because she's actually gay. What the It just, yeah, a bunch of shit. Night and Day. Night and Day was actually kind of cute. Rune and, what's her face? The Hind. I forgot her name because they always called her the Hind. I thought that was actually kind of cute. It was predictable. I saw it coming. I knew that the Hind was Day. But it was kind of cute. And honestly, I was mostly interested in, like, figuring out, like, when or how they would come to meet each other. But I was really sad that, like, nothing else happened after that. Because it was literally at the end of the book. And I don't know, Rune being that mad at her was weird. But whatever. That was kind of cute. I did like that part of the plot as well, where he's, like, getting intel from her and then, like, developing feelings. I mean, I fucking saw it coming from a mile away. Plot point number 11, the Asteri, right? The fucking overlords who are actually an alien horde. What? And they've been populating other planets like a parasite type of thing, and they've been stealing everyone's magical powers by consuming them in some weird ass way where they collect light. Listen, that would have been a really cool reveal, and it would have been really interesting if maybe this book hadn't been 800 pages. And if instead of focusing on Ethan and Therian and Celestine and all those other fucking little things that happened, and it had actually built up the world more and this investigation into, okay, well, how do we defeat this tyrannical overlord? I think it would have been better. But the fact that it just kind of got plopped at the end, I was like, sure, why not? Yeah, okay, Sarah J. Maas, you can do whatever you want. You can turn this book into a fantasy romance, into a fantasy sci-fi romance. Sure. Which also, I just want to point out, the fact that this book kept talking about Midgard bothered me, because that is Nordic mythology, and yet nothing in this book at all relates to Nordic mythology. But the fact that Sarah J. Maas decided to use the idea of Midgard and the fucking like tree, the tree of planets or whatever, and that now the Asteri apparently hop from planet to planet and try to like consume their life and they conquer them or whatever. It felt cheap and it felt used, and like I didn't like it. I really hated it, and I felt like the Asteri and their alien type of thing going on here, their conquerors of worlds, would have been a lot better in a different book. Would have been a lot better in a book that was actually more dedicated to creating a world and a enemy that has substance. Whereas here it's just like, oh well, we need some kind of bad guy, and I can't think of anything more evil than consuming other worlds, so let's just put that right in there. And finally, the very end of the book, where, listen, I'm not a Sarah J. Maas fan, clearly, but I didn't read any of her stuff. I'm not interested in Thorn of Glass. I'm not interested in ACOTAR, because it's, from what I've heard, heavily romance, slightly fantasy, loads of fucking angst and drama, and that's not me. But because it's so fucking big on fucking everything, Instagram in particular, because I use Instagram a lot, and I see non-stop posts for it, I know who the fuck Rysand is, okay? I've heard that name. And the fact that it comes up at the end as like the big fucking mic drop, I guess, which that was probably the 30th goddamn mic drop throughout this book, so it really felt more like a little plop. Sarah J. Maas is trying to, I guess, merge her two like worlds together of Crescent City and ACOTAR and just put them together. I'm not for that. Listen, I'm not about to read those books, and I'm sure that you don't have to read those books to probably like be interested in continuing with the series if you did like this second book, but I'm done. I'm done. The moment I saw Rysand, just hi, I'm Rysand, I was like, I'm fucking done. Bryce teleported, she meant to go to hell, and she ended up ending up in the world of another book series, and no. This book maybe had a great success with a lot of Sarah J. Maas fans, especially if it's going to tie into ACOTAR and people really liked ACOTAR. That's awesome. I'm so happy for those fans, for people who love Sarah J. Maas. But from my experience reading this second book, I am not continuing with this series. I don't care. I don't care what the fuck the rest of this is. If they do find the hordes of hell, or if the people from ACOTAR come in and save the day in Crescent City and defeat the Asteri, which is probably going to happen. Just, fill it in with a bunch of other random shit. I do not regret reading House of Earth and Blood. I do recommend, if you are at least interested a little bit, read House of Earth and Blood. Stop there. It is a great standalone. I'm going to pretend that it's not a series. It is a great standalone. You can read it, you'll enjoy it. It's kind of like a fantasy murder mystery. It's great. But other than that, yeah, I'm good. I read these 800 pages and I hated every second of it. I had a few good giggles here and there, but that's about it. So that is my rant for this book. I feel like a weight has been lifted off my chest because I said that I would read this book so many times and I said it so long ago, and now I finally have. And yeah, I'm satisfied in a way. I'm like, cool. That was good. Will I ever think of rereading this book? Abso-fucking-lutely not. Will I reread House of Earth and Blood? Yeah, because I had fun with that one. But yeah, That's it. Oh gosh. If you're from Instagram and you've been waiting for me to do this, thank you so much for watching. If you're not from Instagram and you just happened to stumble upon this video, also, thank you for watching. I hope you had a good time, because I sure as hell did. And now I am going to put that book on my shelf and pretend that I never read it and move on with my life. It was great. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a great rest of your day. Peace out. Love you. Bye.